The 2025 Rays don't have the same September magic as the 2011 squad did.
You are Locked On Rays, your daily Tampa Bay Rays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Rays podcast. Locked On Rays is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we are Kevin and Ulysses. Ulysses is not here today, but we should be back together for the remainder of this week. I will say we are lifelong Rays fans who have been podcasting about the Tampa Bay Rays since 2019. Later on in today's show, we break down Josh Lowe's recent resurgence at the plate. In a few minutes, we'll discuss why the Rays must play mistake-free baseball if they want to have a semblance of competing for a wild card. But to start, let's talk about why this year's Rays team cannot replicate what the legendary 2011 squad did. And before we get to all that, we do have to tell you that this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. A little bit of history for the folks out there, maybe the younger generation that isn't quite as familiar with what happened in September 2011. Sometimes my mind gets foggy as well. So I will give a quick recap of what happened in September 2011 and why the 2025 team won't do that and frankly can't do that. Back in September 2011, the Tampa Bay Rays completed one of the most incredible comebacks in MLB history, whereby they erased a 9-game deficit to the Boston Red Sox in the final month to win the American League wildcard on the final day of the season. The playoff clinching moment occurred in a dramatic 8-7 walk-off win against the New York Yankees on September 28th, 2011. Couple reasons why 2025 is not 2011. First of all, a little bit of recency bias. The Rays were supposed to take 3 of 4 against the Cleveland Guardians, really didn't have much breathing room to give. And instead of splitting that series, at the very least, they lost 3-4. And unfortunately, they lost some of those games in incredibly heartbreaking fashion. But there's a key note here that is a difference between 2011 and 2025. And I love the people that are positive and confident and upbeat and have hope and saying, hey, the Rays did it in 2011. They can do it again in 2025. Sure, I'll give you that. But the problem is you're not just trying to fight off and unseat the Red Sox like in 2011. You're trying to fight off and unseat the Mariners, the Rangers, the Royals, and the Guardians. And let me remind you, a Guardians team that you lost 3 of 4 against. The Rays have 4 teams to leapfrog, not one. So if the Rays are to go gangbusters the remainder of the month, I think if my math and recollection is correct, back in 2011, the Rays went 12-7 in their last 19 games. Good, solid, not out of this world. It wasn't 18-1 or 17-2 or 16-3. But you had a complete dismantling of the Red Sox, a team that went 5-14 down that stretch. So let's say that the Rays go 12-7 the remainder of the season, or however many games there are left. They need essentially all 4 of these teams to likewise fall flat on their face. You can maybe understand 1 struggling mightily down the stretch, maybe understand 2 struggling mightily down the stretch, but 3 or all 4, that's a lot to wish for and a lot to hope and a lot to expect. Now, here's the other key difference too. And beyond the fact that, that 2011 Rays team ultimately won 91 games. This present Rays team isn't winning 91 games. They're not winning 90 games. They might not win 85 games. This is a team that, as of this recording, is 71-72, and they've been below 500 nearly half the season. This is a 500 ball club. But my point is, we've seen a lot of the mistakes and the issues rear the ugly head of this current squad, which I'll get to in the second segment. But something that the Rays had in spades in 2011 that they don't have now is, frankly, they were better, but also they were more experienced. They had all-stars and veterans like Evan Longoria, like Ben Zobrist, like BJ Upton, like Johnny Damon, like Matt Joyce, and even throwing guys like Casey Kochman. Meanwhile, you have a pitching staff spearheaded by David Price and James Shields and lockdown bullpen guys that you could give the ball to in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning that you could rely upon and count on. What do we have right now? We have a roster that is younger, less decorated, and chock full of dudes who began the year in the minors. That does not seem to be the formula for a team that is going to go bonkers in the heat of September in a playoff race, in a playoff chase. To add further insult to injury, the Rays have they do have the toughest remaining schedule of AL contenders with an opponent winning percentage of 5-1. So I say all that to say the Rays have too much working against them. They had a lot working against them in 2011, but even more so now, way more hurdles. And it's something that, again, the Rays will not be able to replicate what they did in 2011. They may never be able to do something like that in the franchise history, but definitely not in 2025. So all we can do is hope for the best, try to win as many games as you can, and get some experience and get some good moments from the young guys, because seeing a playoff odd of 1.7% on Tuesday, September 9th, doesn't really bode well for playing in October. So again, we cannot, at some point, we have to give up the idea that this team can do what was done in 2011. All right. We have much more to discuss on today's program. Yeah, I'm just looking at the standings right now. Okay, so as of this recording, again, the 3 wildcard spots are the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the Mariners. The Mariners have the 3rd wildcard spot at 76 and 68. Then you have the Rangers in the 4 hole, the Guardians in the 5 hole, the Royals in the 6 hole, and then you get to the Rays in the 7 hole. That's a lot to overcome right there. Now, if the Rays do have ideations on overcoming and pulling off a crazy miracle a la 2011, what they have to do is play mistake-free baseball, something that they haven't done recently.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. So let's not do that. And you can avoid that by using Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone, even when you're on the go and you want to know what's going on, you can just look at the Monarch Money app, and there it is. So do not let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com using promo code LOCKEDONMLB.
Thank you for making the Locked On Rays podcast your first listen every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We appreciate you out there. Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and find us on all podcasting platforms. Share the misery with us of being a fan of the Rays in 2025. I will note, as of this recording, I do see that the Rays barely by the hair of their chinny chins pulled out a victory against the Chicago White Sox. And that gets to my next point. If this team wants to be in the playoffs, they must start to perform like one. We've seen bits and pieces, dribs and jabs of them looking like a playoff team, of them, oh, wow, they're going on a winning streak. They're hitting well. They're pitching well. They're running the bases well. They're staying relatively healthy. There's been bits and pieces of that, but we haven't seen a full year of that. We've seen, a month, couple weeks of that here and there. For the rest of it, it's pretty much been humdrum. But I think what we saw in the Cleveland Guardians series was a microcosm of the issues that the Rays are dealing with, and issues that must be erased very quickly if this team is going to go on an insane run and at least keep it interesting when it comes to the wild card race. Basically what we saw in the Guardians series, we saw physical errors, we saw misplays, we saw misplaced pitches, we saw all types of mental mistakes. And those are things, when you have a small margin for error of not just making the playoffs, but winning an individual game, that's not going to get it done. Like, just to kind of summarize it, in the game against the White Sox, who the White Sox, by the way, are the worst team in the AL Central. They're, dozens of games under 500. You would think that you jump out to a 4-1 lead, you're going to be able to sustain that lead and maybe build on it a little bit. And by the end of the game, you have a 6-2 victory or a 7-3 victory or something to that effect. But that wasn't the case. I mean, within a couple innings, the White Sox were able to tie it up. And luckily the Rays were able to get a key home run and take the win. But when you get leads like that, especially early leads, you have to hold on to it. And when you're in close ball games, you have to find a way to close the deal. And we didn't see that over the weekend against the Guardians. I mean, we saw 2 one-run losses. That is something that absolutely can't happen. When it gets to the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, you have to have trust and confidence that Pete Fairbanks or Garrett Clevenger or whomever can get it done. And you really don't have that, which gets back to the point that, again, this is a middling 500 ball club that has had, some fun moments here and there, but has not been able to put it together for a full season. And, over the last couple days, last couple games, we've seen a guy trying to steal home. Jake Mangum, didn't work. We see guys that are not running hard on balls that are fair. I see you, Junior Caminero and Brandon Lau. You have a manager putting in a pitcher who's gassed. These types of things add up and cause issues, and ultimately aren't going to allow you to be a thriving ball club. And, the big thing, I think, you have to, if you're the Rays, you can't be scoreboard watching. You basically can't do what I did in the first segment, where I said, well, you gotta get over the Mariners. You got to get over the Rangers. You got to get over the Royals. You got to get over the Guardians. You just have to focus at the game at hand, in the series at hand. And hopefully that's what the clubhouse and the coaching staff is communicating to each other. One play, one inning, one game at a time. I know it's a cliche, but it is true. If you get in this period of scoreboard watching and looking at the standings every day, I don't think it's going to do this team, especially a young team, any favors, because I think while you have to play with a semblance of desperation and a chip on your shoulder, you also don't want to be pressing if you have a lot of rookie players and young players that were in the minor leagues. So, it really comes down to smart baseball, mistake-free baseball. And if you do make a mistake, make sure those mistakes aren't capitalized upon and you minimize those. And that's the unfortunate part, is how can you ask a team that is so young, so rookie laden, and so new and fresh to play together and gel together like a fine oiled machine? I think that's a tough play right there. And I don't see a scenario where this team will move on to the next level in 2025. 2026, I'm excited about. 2027, I'm excited about. I think that with the money that you've saved from Ofting, DFA, and Hassan Kim, that can be used to supplement and buttress your roster, add a couple veteran players around the young guys and see what happens. But I think we're kind of seeing the writing on the wall. And another key too is like, you got to stay healthy. And we're seeing relievers go down. We just heard that Taylor Walls is out for the year. Like that is big in September when you have bodies that are dropping and guys are already exhausted as they are. I mean, imagine how Junior Caminero is feeling right now. Imagine how some of these pitchers are feeling right now that have, put in a full year's workload. This is the time of year where not only can you rely on your starters, but it's your bit pieces and utility players that must step up and give the mainstays a breather every now and again. And can you count on those mainstays? So I go back to it again. The Rays, if they want to have any chance, any shot at doing something, they have to eliminate the errors. They have to eliminate the misplays. They have to be able to maintain a lead. And based on what we've seen recently, over the weekend, I should say, that's been a tough ask. And it's unfortunate, but you also can't be too upset about it because the cards that you've been dealt and what you're working with. And I'll be really curious to see how manager Kevin Cash, I don't want to say manipulates the roster, but puts guys in the best position to be success, knowing guys are tired and run down at this point in time. So, it's where a guy like Tristan Gray must step up on occasion. It's where a guy like Richie Palacios must step up on occasion. Those are the guys that should be full of energy and full of life, either coming back from injury, not really playing a season, or just getting called up from the minors and, they're running on adrenaline and seeing what they can do from there. So yeah, it's tough. It's really not a lot to ask. I mean, these are major leaguers. You would think they'd be able to, cut down on some of the issues, but I think some of it is, pressing and trying to make something happen that may not really be there as well. So, yeah, we'll see what this team can do going forward, but I would not count on them making a playoff run at this point. But hey, you still have 2 games against the White Sox. As Ulysses said on Monday's show, you have to sweep this series. You're in a position where you pretty much can't even take 2 out of 3 anymore. It's sweep, sweep, sweep. It's like go on a run like the White Sox are kind of going on right now. Win 6 out of 7. Do that a couple times and then see where you're at in the standings. And again, you cannot take any opponent lightly. Whether it's the White Sox, whether it's a team that's last in the division, third in the division, or first in their respective division, you can't play down to the competition, and you have to be understanding of that. All right, to wrap things up, I'm going to tell you why Josh Lowe has been proving me wrong of late, and I'm all for it.
There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person. And now there are only 2 homestands left for the Rays in 2025. And you've got to go see your Rays, and you got to use Game Time. Why? Well, because it's actually fun to get tickets using Game Time. You know why? Because there's no surprise fees. That's my favorite part about Game Time. You don't just get stuck with all these fees at the end of the line that you didn't think that you would get, okay? It's the price you see. That's the price that you pay. So take advantage and download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code LOCKED for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today.
Thank you for listening to the Locked On Rays podcast and making us your first listen every day. We do appreciate it. We are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. So Josh Lowe has been proving me wrong, and I'm all for it. Of late, he is starting to look like the player we've all hoped for and believed he would be in 2025. Now, I will say a couple weeks ago when he was dealing with oblique issues and that set him back for a bit, he ultimately did not go on an IL stint. My first thought and impression was this is a lingering issue, a lingering problem, and you're not going to see much from him offensively the rest of the year. It's going to sap his power. He might get re-injured, and I didn't really have an excuse for him because it's not like he's playing on the roughshod trop turf like so many other outfielders that have played for the Rays complain about. But Josh Lowe has been on a massive tear of late. In tonight's game, recording on Tuesday evening, by the way, he hit his 11th home run, and he now has essentially 5 homers in his last 15 games and a slash line that would, more or less make Junior Caminero blush. But couple things out of this. One is that I guess the oblique seems to be healed, which is a great sign for the remainder of this year and next year. So if the Rays are going to go on a crazy run, they need a guy like Josh Lowe to play up to his potential, and he's doing everything that he can. In fact, as crazy as it sounds, despite the fact that he's only played in 94 games this year, this is his second best season in a Rays uniform if we go back to his MLB debut in 2021, because he missed significant time in 2024, wasn't all that good, and then only played in 52 games in 2022 and just played the 2 games in 2021. We're all looking at the 2023 season as the benchmark, hopefully. And based on what he's shown the last couple weeks, if you look at his season numbers so far this year and extrapolate them to could he keep that up over 140 plus games, I would take that every day and twice on Sundays. If he was able to put up these types of numbers and then you add to them, beef them up a little bit over the course of basically a season like Yandy Diaz, something that I don't think Yandy Diaz gets enough credit for is the relative consistency of him. Like the last 5 years for Yandy in a Rays uniform, 134 games, 137 games, 137 games, 145 games, 134 games. You get that from Josh Lowe, you're happy. You get that from really anybody, you're happy. You get that from Brandon Lau, you're over the moon. But Josh Lowe, the oblique seems to be calmed now, which is great. But he also has made an adjustment, a late season adjustment that seems to be working. Now, some of it may be mental, sure, but I think that it could be a key for him going forward. He decided a few weeks ago to keep his right foot down and essentially eliminate a leg kick. And as a result, we've seen the production go up. And he views it as having better timing, allowing him to get to the ball quicker. And previously, the leg kick was just leading to too many foul balls on pitches that he might have been capable of driving. And I think also just the simplified approach, not overthinking, and something that the Rays really can't do. They can't overthink it. Just go out and play the best you can and see what happens. But not having that thought of, hey, I'm trying to hit a home run here. I'm just trying to find a good pitch to hit. And if it ends up being a double the other way or a single up the middle or a home run that's pulled, so be it. As long as I'm making good contact, good things will happen. And we've seen a lot of that recently from Josh Lowe. Not just the home runs, but hitting triples and really timing all types of pitches up the middle of the field. Whether it's a changeup or a curveball, and even the fastballs. Like we're seeing 97, 98 fastballs come to Josh Lowe, and he's able to square them up right over the shortstop's head or right over the second baseman's head, which you hope that he's able to continue to do for the rest of the season for the Rays' sake. But and we're also seeing him steal some bases every now and again. We saw a stand-up triple recently. So the oblique doesn't seem to be as much of a problem anymore, which is great. And you hope he's able to play a quasi full season in 2026. And really for him, it's put up or shut up time, as we talked about on the show previously. Like you with so many prospects and call-ups of late, you can't just rely on a season you had a couple years ago saying, hey, I can do it. Just keep giving me time. The Rays don't really allow for that time. They'll move on to the next relatively quickly, especially if arbitration is coming up. But if he can have a strong finish to 2025, carry that momentum into spring training in the regular season in 2026, I don't see why he can't have a similar year to what he had in 2023. And he's a guy that I think, I don't know if I would ever say, hey, he's going to be a middle of the order thumper, but he is a great compliment, or even more than a compliment. I mean, a key player when you time him up with the profile diversity of Yandy Diaz and Junior Caminero and Brandon Lau and Chandler Simpson. It's a really good mix. And I will be the first to admit when I'm wrong, and I was wrong about Josh Lowe. I thought he was going to flounder and totally fall apart. We saw a little bit of that when I mentioned it, but he has really come along, and let's hope he's able to keep it up. And the leg kick or non-leg kick thing can be a fad. Players are superstitious. They're always tweaking things. Something feels good and they go back to something else. But he has enough pop in his bat, I think, to not need a leg kick. And he has actually a pretty quick short to the ball swing anyway, and it's been working. And if you find a good enough pitch to hit, you're going to be able to deposit it. Especially when you're, it might change when you're at Tropicana Field next year, but at Steinbrenner as a left-handed hitter, you don't necessarily have to get all of baseball to get it over the fence. So, but overall, I think it's not just the home runs, the fact that he's shown that of late. I think it's the fact that he is really focusing on the middle of the field, which means he's timing things up pretty well. And we've seen pitches up and in. We've seen knuckle curves down well below the zone, and he's still found a way to poke them almost with a golf swing. So that's actually been fun to watch as well. But Josh Lowe, we're rooting for you. Keep it up. See what you can do the rest of the season. And in 2026, I'll just showcase. He's got an OPS of 705. He's got 11 homers. He's got 17 stolen bases, 240-ish batting average. I mean, that's in this day and age of baseball, you can't complain about that one bit. All right. Thank you for listening and indulging me on this solo episode. Again, Ulysses and I will be together on Wednesday's episode, getting the gang all back. I was out of town over the weekend, actually catching a couple Marlins games, which I may have to talk about. They do some pretty cool things with their concession stands that I think the Rays should implement at some point. But that's probably a conversation for another day. In the meantime, though, thank you all for listening to the show. We appreciate it. For your next listen, check out the Locked On MLB podcast. That is where they have the game night show. Every game, every night, all season long. You can find that on their YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your podcast.